Why is it that women dream about one type of man, but end up living with another? It's a paradox that every man has noticed at some point in his life. She swears she wants stability, kindness, and loyalty. Yet the guys she obsesses over don't exactly fit that mold. Maybe you've seen it firsthand. The girl who cries on your shoulder about how the bad boy mistreats her, yet she keeps going back to him. Or the friend who was ignored all through his 20s, only to suddenly become attractive to women after he had a stable job, a house, and security to offer. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Women crave the alpha, but they settle for the beta. And before you roll your eyes or think this is just another cliché, let me clarify, this isn't about cartoon stereotypes of macho versus nice guy. This is about something much deeper, something rooted in evolution, psychology, and social structures that are older than civilization itself. So let's start with a story. Imagine two men from thousands of years ago. One is the hunter, the warrior. He takes risks, he commands respect, and when he walks into the tribe's gathering, people notice. Women can't help but feel something stir inside them. Not because he's nice, but because he radiates strength, decisiveness, and danger. He's unpredictable, and that unpredictability makes him intoxicating. The second man is the gatherer. He's reliable. He brings food back, takes care of the camp, makes sure things are orderly. He's safe, he's steady, he's dependable. He will probably be there tomorrow. Now here's the brutal reality. Women are wired to desire both. The first man lights the fire of passion, lust, and raw attraction. The second man provides safety, stability, and long-term survival. The problem? No single man can fully embody both roles at once. This is the paradox that men have wrestled with for millennia. And in today's world of dating apps, social media, and endless choice, the paradox has only become more pronounced. So when you hear women say, "I just want a nice guy," remember, that's only half the story. Because what they're not saying is that they want the nice guy after the thrill of the alpha has already been experienced. The truth is, women don't consciously decide this. It's not a conspiracy. It's not something they even necessarily admit to themselves. It's built into human psychology, and here's why this matters to you. If you don't understand this paradox, if you don't recognize the split between what women crave and what they settle for, you risk becoming the man who gives everything, only to realize he was never truly desired. Over the next sections, we're going to unpack this fully. We'll dig into evolution, psychology, and modern power dynamics. And by the end, you'll see why this isn't about blaming women or idolizing alphas. It's about understanding the game you're already playing, whether you realize it or not. Picture this. You're standing in a crowded city street. Billboards flash, cars honk, people rush past in suits and sneakers. It feels modern, advanced, like we've evolved far beyond the old ways of living. But here's the thing. Our brains haven't caught up. At the biological level, you and I are still wired like hunter-gatherers. The same instincts that helped our ancestors survive in the wild still govern how we choose mates, even if we're swiping left and right instead of tracking deer through the forest. And this is where the paradox of women craving the alpha but settling for the beta begins. Think back tens of thousands of years. Life was brutal. Death was always around the corner. For a woman, choosing the wrong man wasn't just a bad dating decision. It was a literal survival risk. The man she chose determined whether her children would survive, whether she'd be protected from rival tribes, whether she'd even eat that winter. So nature built in a dual strategy. Women evolved to be drawn to two different sets of traits, depending on context. On one hand, they were wired to be drawn to dominant, aggressive, high-status men, the alphas. These men offered strong genes, protection, and the thrill of passion. Their children were more likely to survive because they inherited resilience, strength, and dominance. On the other hand, women also needed reliable, stable men, the betas. Men who would stick around, provide resources, and ensure long-term survival once the thrill of the hunt was over. This dual mating strategy isn't something women consciously invented. It's biology, it's evolution, and it's why the paradox exists today. Now, you might think, but that was thousands of years ago. Surely in 2025, things have changed. Here's the kicker: they haven't. Yes, society is different. Women can earn their own money, vote, and run companies. Men don't need to spear a mammoth to earn respect. But the underlying psychology hasn't rewritten itself. Women still feel that deep, primal pull toward dominance, charisma, and confidence, traits that signal the alpha. And at the same time, they still want safety, provision, and stability, traits that signal the beta. This is why you'll often hear women say things like, "I want a man who makes me feel safe, but also excites me. I want someone stable, but not boring. I want someone kind, but not weak." Translation: they want the paradox solved. They want both the hunter and the gatherer in one man. But here's the problem: most men lean heavily into one role. Some go full nice guy provider, only to be taken for granted. Others chase the bad boy alpha archetype, only to burn out relationships that can't sustain long-term stability. The tragic twist: society pushes men into the provider role because it benefits the social order. Yet women's subconscious wiring still hungers for the thrill of the alpha. And so the cycle continues. Desire the alpha, settle for the beta. Here's where things get interesting. If you're a man who understands this paradox, you gain an edge. Because while most guys are blindly playing one role, you can start seeing the game for what it is. You can recognize when you're being cast as the provider, when you're being desired, and when you're simply being used. And understanding that is the first step to reclaiming your power. In the next section, we're going to go deeper into the psychology, hypergamy, status, and the female subconscious. Because evolution gave women the programming, but psychology explains how it plays out in modern life. Let's talk about the word that makes some men uncomfortable, yet explains almost everything about modern dating: hypergamy. Hypergamy is the instinctive drive for women to seek the highest value partner available to them. It's not a conscious choice. It's an ancient survival program running in the background of the female mind. Think of it like this. If you were driving across the desert and saw two gas stations, one nearly empty, the other fully stocked, you'd instinctively choose the one with more resources. That choice isn't evil, it's practical. It increases your chances of survival. For women, attraction works in a similar way. Their subconscious is always scanning for signs of dominance, confidence, leadership, and status. The cues that scream, "This man can protect me and give my children the best shot at survival." And this is why women crave the alpha. The alpha doesn't just signal physical dominance. He signals certainty in an uncertain world. When he speaks, people listen. When he moves, people follow. He doesn't need validation. He gives it. He doesn't bend to the crowd. He defines the crowd. But here's the paradox. While the subconscious craves this type of man, the conscious mind rationalizes differently. The conscious mind says, "I want stability. I want safety. I want a man who won't leave me." That's where the beta comes in, the provider, the steady one, the man who signs the mortgage and keeps the lights on. And so we see the tension. A woman may lust after the alpha, but commit to the beta. She may fantasize about the risk-taking adventurer while marrying the safe, dependable accountant. Now here's where it gets dangerous for men. If you don't understand this split between subconscious desire and conscious choice, you'll take her words at face value. She'll say, "I just want a nice guy who treats me well." And you'll believe her. You'll pour in time, money, effort, thinking that's the formula for attraction. But deep down, her subconscious doesn't reward effort alone. Attraction doesn't work like a bank account where deposits equal returns. It's more primal. It's about how you make her feel. And here's the kicker. Women don't even fully realize they're doing this. Hypergamy isn't a deliberate conspiracy. It's an instinct. Just like you don't consciously think about breathing, women don't consciously think, let me settle for the beta while craving the alpha. It just plays out that way. That's why men often feel blindsided when the woman they invested years into suddenly loses interest, cheats, or leaves. She may have loved him on a conscious level, but subconsciously, the attraction switch flipped off. Now, this isn't about demonizing women. It's about seeing reality clearly. Attraction isn't fair. It isn't symmetrical. Men and women are not driven by the same forces. For men, attraction can be visual, instant, and straightforward. For women, it's layered, subconscious, and deeply tied to psychology and status. So here's the uncomfortable truth. If you ignore hypergamy, you risk becoming the provider she settles for. If you understand it, you can begin to navigate relationships with clarity. In the next section, we're going to see how this plays out in modern society, why dating has changed drastically in the last 50 years, and yet why women's psychology hasn't. If you compare dating today to dating just 50 years ago, it looks like a completely different universe. Dating apps, Instagram, global travel, endless options at the swipe of a finger. Women have careers, independence, and financial freedom that previous generations never dreamed of. And yet, for all that change, the psychology hasn't evolved. The instincts are the same. This is where the paradox of craving the alpha but settling for the beta becomes more complicated, because modern society amplifies the tension between those two drives. Let's break this down. 1. The rise of abundance. A few decades ago, a woman's dating pool was limited to her town, her university, her workplace. Today, a single DM can connect her to a man across the world. Dating apps have given women access to thousands of potential mates, something evolution never prepared us for. Here's what's important. This abundance makes hypergamy hyperactive. Because when options are limitless, the subconscious is always scanning for better. That's why women today may crave the excitement of high-status men, musicians, athletes, influencers, even if they know consciously those men won't commit. The thrill is amplified by the endless stream of options. 2. The collapse of traditional structures. In the past, social pressure kept the paradox in check. Women couldn't easily leave a marriage. Families and communities enforced commitment. A woman might still lust after the alpha, but social norms required her to settle down with the provider. Today, divorce is easy. Commitment is optional. And social media constantly bombards women with images of men who seem more dominant, more exciting, more high value than the one at home. The result? The ancient split between desire and settlement grows sharper. 3. The provider problem. Here's the cruel twist. Modern society doesn't need providers the way it once did. Women can earn their own income, pay their own rent, and survive without a man's resources. So what does that mean for the beta provider? He's no longer essential. Stability is nice, but not necessary. Which means attraction, the primal pull toward dominance, charisma, and confidence, plays an even bigger role in mate choice. In other words, the alpha's stock is rising. 4. The fantasy versus reality trap. Modern culture feeds women two conflicting messages. On one hand, Hollywood and social media glamorize the exciting, dominant, powerful man, the alpha. On the other hand, society tells women to choose the stable partner, the husband material, the beta. So what happens? Many women chase the alpha in their youth, then pivot to the beta in their 30s when biological clocks and stability pressures kick in. The craving never disappears, it just gets repressed. 5. What this means for men. Here's the hard truth. If you're a man who only plays the provider role, you're fighting a losing battle. Society no longer rewards the provider the way it used to. Meanwhile, the men who embody confidence, dominance, and charisma, whether authentic or not, draw the deepest desire. But here's the trap. Many men misinterpret this, swinging too far into fake alpha posturing, thinking it's about tattoos, money, or aggression. It's not. True dominance isn't external. It's psychological. It's a way of being. And that's what we'll explore next. Because in the next section, we're going to talk about the trap for men, why so many end up as the unchosen provider, and how to recognize when you're being cast in that role. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered why some men seem to have women chasing them with little effort, while others spend years giving everything only to be taken for granted? This isn't luck. It isn't random. It's a predictable trap. And unless you see it, you risk walking right into it. Here's how it works. Step 1. Believing the words, not the actions. From an early age, men are told, be nice, be respectful, be dependable. Women want a man who treats them well. And on the surface, that sounds right. But here's the catch. Women say they want this, while their actions reveal something else. She says she wants the nice guy, but who does she obsess over? The man who makes her feel something. The one who stirs excitement, uncertainty, passion. Most men never notice the gap between words and actions. They take her statements literally and start over-investing in the provider role. Step 2. Investment without desire. When a man pours time, money, and emotional labor into a woman who doesn't feel primal attraction, he unintentionally cements himself as the safe option. Yes, she may appreciate his stability. Yes, she may even agree to be with him. But deep down, she doesn't crave him. He's the beta she settles for, not the alpha she desires. And here's the brutal truth. When desire is absent, no amount of niceness can replace it. Attraction isn't negotiated. It isn't earned like a paycheck. It's sparked, or it isn't. Step 3. The slow realization. Many men don't see this trap until years later, after they've built a life together, after they've invested everything. That's when cracks appear. She's distant, she's restless. She's scrolling Instagram with a glazed look in her eyes, and he starts to feel it, the creeping sense that he was never truly wanted, that he was chosen but not desired. That's the pain of the provider trap. Not that she leaves, not that she cheats, but that she stays without passion. Why it's so common? Why do so many men fall into this? Simple, because society benefits when men play the provider. Stable families, tax contributions, order. The alpha creates chaos. The beta builds civilization. But here's the irony. The very system that trains men to be good providers doesn't teach them how attraction really works. It grooms them to be safe, dependable, replaceable. And then those same men wonder why they don't inspire passion. The harsh reality. This is why you'll hear stories of men who gave everything, financially, emotionally, only to be left for someone who made her feel alive again. The man she settled for becomes the man she quietly resents, and the man she craved is the ghost she never fully forgets. Here's the key takeaway. The trap isn't just about her, it's about you. The moment you stop being the man who excites her and start being the man who only provides for her, you've stepped into the provider role. But don't worry, this isn't the end of the story, because there is another path. In the next section, we're going to break down what it really means to be an alpha in today's world, beyond cliches, beyond fake bravado. The traits that actually trigger desire and how you can embody them without losing your integrity. When you hear the word alpha, what image comes to mind? For most men, it's the stereotypical movie character, chiseled jawline, leather jacket, dangerous grin, maybe a motorcycle in the background. For others, it's wealth, fast cars, expensive suits, bottle service at the nightclub. But here's the truth. Those are just surface-level signals. They can grab attention, sure, but they don't sustain long-term attraction. Because being an alpha isn't about props, it's about frame. What is frame? Frame is the lens through which you view the world, and, just as importantly, the lens through which others see you. The man with an alpha frame doesn't bend his reality to please others. He defines reality, and people either accept it or leave. Think of it like gravity. You don't see it, but you feel it. When a man has frame, women feel pulled into his orbit, not because he's loud, aggressive, or flashy, but because he radiates certainty. Certainty is the core. At its heart, the alpha archetype is about certainty in the face of uncertainty. When chaos erupts, he doesn't panic, he acts. When someone challenges him, he doesn't shrink. He responds with calm authority. When life tests him, he doesn't whine, he adapts. This certainty is magnetic. Women crave it, not because they've read it in a self-help book, but because their biology recognizes it as protection, leadership, survival. The misconception about alphas. Too many men confuse dominance with aggression. They think being alpha means barking orders, flexing muscles, or putting others down. That's not dominance. That's insecurity dressed as strength. True dominance is quiet confidence. It's the calm eye in the storm. The man who doesn't need to prove himself because he knows who he is. That's why some of the most alpha men you'll ever meet aren't the loudest in the room. They're the ones who barely say a word, yet everyone waits for their opinion. How this plays out in relationships. Here's the key difference. The beta seeks validation from the woman. He asks, "Am I enough? Do you love me? What more can I do?" The alpha gives validation sparingly. He doesn't need her approval. He chooses to give his attention when it's earned. This dynamic flips the script. Women may respect the provider, but they crave the man who holds frame. That's why you'll see women tolerate flaws, overlook red flags, and even chase men who treat them indifferently, because at a subconscious level, those men radiate frame. They feel irreplaceable. Building your alpha frame. So how do you embody this without faking it? It comes down to three things. Purpose. A mission bigger than her. If she is your only mission, you've already lost. Boundaries. A willingness to walk away. Without boundaries, you're not respected, you're used. Self-mastery. Control of your emotions, habits, and impulses. If you can't lead yourself, you can't lead anyone else. This is what it means to be alpha today. Not surface-level posturing, but an unshakable internal foundation. And here's the twist. When you embody this, you don't have to chase women. You attract them. Because women aren't just drawn to men. They're drawn to the frame those men live in. But we're not finished yet. Because while the alpha frame explains desire, the final piece is reflection. What does this mean for you? Your choices, your relationships, your future? That's where we'll go in the final section. So now you see the paradox clearly. Women crave the alpha, but often settle for the beta. It's not malice, not manipulation. It's biology and psychology playing out in the modern world. But here's the real question. What role are you playing? Are you the man she desires, or the man she tolerates? Are you the one she dreams about, or the one she leans on when there's no other option? The truth is, most men never stop to ask this. They pour themselves into the provider role because society told them that's the right way. And when passion fades, when she drifts, when the relationship feels hollow, they blame her. But the hard truth is this: it starts with you. You cannot control female psychology. You cannot rewrite millions of years of evolution. But you can control your frame, your purpose, and your choices. You can decide not to settle for being the safe option. You can decide to embody certainty, boundaries, and self-mastery. And that's the deeper point of this channel, not just to understand women, but to understand yourself. To live consciously in a world that thrives on keeping men blind to these dynamics. Because the moment you see the game, you stop being played by it. So, ask yourself, when she looks at you, does she see a man she had to settle for, or a man she would never forgive herself for losing? That answer, your answer, is everything. If this video shook something in you, like the video, share it with a brother who needs to hear it. Subscribe and support the mission using the link in the description below.